Hello, friends. Welcome to today's episode of Thinking Out of the Box. So, this is episode 1, and we're starting off pretty small and chill. If you remember from a few weeks ago, I created this awesome black and gray piece. I will link the video at the end, so you can definitely check that out if you're interested. I really wanted to make a card out of this, and I wanted to make it with some topiaries and have the sentiment, life began in a garden. It all just worked out perfectly in my head, and I was like, oh, if only I had those stamps and everything. And I was like, how can I create this even if I don't have exactly what I need? And that's where we're thinking outside of the box today. So to start with, I wanted to create a background of this really bright yellow and white stripes. Since I don't have a big wide stripe background stamp, I decided to just paint that color on with a wide brush. I did one band of yellow, spaced it out by the width of the brush, and then did the next band of yellow. Now I'm creating the topiaries, which kind of seemed a little daunting, but actually they're just basic shapes. So here I put some water down on my watercolor paper in the shape of a circle. And all I did is drop in some of that dark green into the circle. And I tried to drop it near the center and not near the edge, because I wanted the outside edges not to have a hard line, but to have the soft line that you see here. So then I did the same thing in a triangle shape, as well as a little circle over a bigger circle, and you'll see those just in a little bit. Now I am taking some darker greens and dropping them in. This piece was almost dry, but not fully, so I didn't get harsh lines, but I got soft shades of color, which kind of go with the muted look I was going for. Then with a fairly dry brush, I took some of the brown color and drew in some viney stems so that it has a stem. It was really easy. Next, I took some dark orange, which I believe I mixed this color. I had an orange and I added some brown in there just to darken it up. And I'm adding shading along one side, aka just some more color in along one side so that it looks a little bit darker. I did take some even darker color and add even more shading as well. So creating the pots was really simple. For the one you just saw, it was a circle. Then I created, is this a parallelogram or a rhombus? One of those square-like shapes. Then simply a rectangle. So it's really easy. These seem difficult, but they're not. I think the biggest thing is just making things into shapes. So, breaking it down into manageable pieces. I fussy cut those out, and I have everything pulled together. I'm trying to figure out how to pull this card all together. I'm gonna paint some of the yellow down on a scrap piece of watercolor paper so that I can write out the sentiment here in a few minutes. As I do that, I wanted to note that the square piece is 5.5 by 5.5 inches, and I cut in just a few minutes with a die a stitch rectangle die, the black piece down. I believe it's 5¼ by 4 inches. Now I'm adding some fun foam to the back of 2 of these topiaries. In the second topiary, I'm adding an extra layer. So I have 1 topiary with nothing, 1 topiary with 1 layer of foam, and 1 topiary with 2 layers of foam. Here you can see I'm using that stitched rectangle to cut this down. I am making sure that the words are gonna look parallel. You know, I don't want to cut that at a wonky angle. That would just, which you could do, but it wouldn't look good in this context. It just wouldn't really go. Unless you did it at a really wildly wonky angle, and then I think it'd be fine. But I like that the lines run normal, you know, horizontal, which is similar to the lines in the background running horizontal. Next, we're going to cut out a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock because I wanted a little bit more detail on this card. The 5½ by 5½ square card, it doesn't seem that much bigger than a 5½ by 4¼ A2 size card, but there is a lot more real estate that it seems like to me. So we're going to cover this with some emerald gold gilding paste from Cosmic Shimmer. I believe that's the name of it. And this is in the Enchanted Gold color. I added that to the background. Once that was dry, I ran this Crafter's Companion die through my Gemini machine. It's a very intricate die, so you definitely want to make sure that your machine can handle that. But really any intricate die that has kind of some scroll work on it would work great for this. Just to note, I've used all Crafter's Companion sparkle inks or sparkle markers to color everything today. It's what I had out and it matched the black background that I already had, so it all worked perfectly together. Next, I die cut. If you remember a few minutes ago, I painted an extra piece yellow. I die cut this little flag from Art Impressions out of that yellow cardstock. Now, since I'm going to actually write the sentiment, and you could always use an alphabet die set or an alphabet stamp set to stamp out whatever sentiment you want to write. But I don't have any alphabet stamp sets. I find them very difficult to work with, so I don't buy them. Instead, usually what I'll do is design it on the Cricut and just have the Cricut write it out. But here, I just really felt like I should write it out myself. Felt like I had good enough handwriting if I wrote slow. You will see I just made a mistake and didn't wait for the pen to fully dry before starting erasing it. I wanted to erase it so I could write the G's that run below. Instead, I erased some of the black pen onto the yellow. There is the mono sand eraser, which I own one, but for the life of me I could not find it. It would be great to use right here. I just used a little pick, the X-Acto knife. I used my X-Acto knife to just kind of pick off a little bit. Then I add a little bit of yellow back in, and you'll see that in a minute. Next, I'm building up this topiary scene. I put everything through my Xyron Create a Sticker machine, and of course the foam had not adhered to itself, so I had to stick it all back together. But now you'll see it looks like one-dimensional die cut, which is super fun. So I'm adding that as kind of the central interest of this card. Although there's a lot going on, I still think it looks pretty simple, which I really liked about this. Next, I'm taking this sentiment strip and I'm going to cut off the edge and tuck it behind that die cut that I have off to the side there. Here you can see where I was talking about, where I'm using my craft knife to kind of pick off the black stuff. I painted just a tad of yellow under there. It doesn't fully go to the same color because the yellow I'd colored down had been just a tad watered down, but sure, I would have loved it to be perfect, but there are other issues with this card. I didn't fussy cut the trees perfectly. You know, you can't do everything perfectly, and at some point you just have to say, this is good. I'm going to keep moving. Keep getting stuff done. So that's what I did here. I did go back and add a little bit more yellow under the words so that it looked more intentional, but it would have looked better if I hadn't have had to do that. Next, I've used a base card that I got in a stamping kit that I just hadn't ever used. So that's why the paper kind of reacted weird to adding the yellow color down. The inside I don't think looks near as cool as the outside. I decided to paint some yellow so I could put the inside sentiment in here, which is, but my life began with you. So the whole sentiment reads, life began in a garden, but my life began with you. So I think this would be a perfect Mother's Day or Father's Day card, or even a Valentine's Day card, because it's so happy and fun, and it has such a meaning without being too in your face. Like, oh, I super love you. You're so wonderful. It's very meaningful, but at the same time calm and respectful. And it doesn't have to be to someone you're in love with, just someone that you do love. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Thinking Out of the Box for my Thursday series. If you have made anything outside the box, definitely use the hashtag TLC Thursday, TOOTB, and share it with me so that I can see. I would love to see it. If you have any ideas for any outside of the box projects you want me to try, go ahead and leave a comment. Thanks so much for joining me. I had so much fun. Have a great day. Bye, guys.